Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys liked the video, and please subscribe and hit that like button. So today we're actually going to be taking a little bit of a dark turn, so viewer discretion is definitely advised. So today we're going to be talking about two serial killers who were active in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the same time. They lived less than a mile and a half away from each other, and they also didn't know about each other. It's crazy. So before I actually really jump into it, if you're into, the criminal minds type of things, I'm sure you've heard the concept of nature versus environment. And if you haven't heard about that concept, basically what it means is people who are serial killers or abusers or psychopaths, whatever, sociopaths, is it their nature being where they're born like this? Is it biology? Or is it their environment? Was it because of how they grew up, where they're from, they became the person that they became? And honestly, I don't even really have an answer for it, but I did notice that when doing research on these two guys, some people did argue about both sides, nature for one, environment for the other. And like I said, to be honest, I don't really know, but I want to know, what do you think? You can think about it in your head, or I like when I see comments or when people respond to me on Instagram, because I did put my Instagram in the link, but yeah, what do you think? Do you think it's because of a circumstance? Do you think people are born like that? Do you think it just is? There really is no explanation. So let me know what you guys think. So today we're going to be talking about Gary Heidnik and also Harrison Granham. So let's talk about Gary Heidnik. Starting off with Gary Heidnik, he was born November 22nd, 1943 in Eastlake, Ohio. Oh, by the way, Heidnik is actually one of the crazy inspirations, for Silence of the Lambs, for the character Buffalo Bill. And I'll later explain how he began to be an inspiration for that crazy behind character, Buffalo Bill. So moving forward, Heidnik is the youngest of three. So he was born in 1943. His parents ended up separating and divorcing in 1946. His siblings and himself stayed with their mom for about 4 years. And then after staying with her for 4 years, they were placed in the care of their father and their stepmother. Heidnik later claimed in life that his father was very emotionally abusive towards him, traumatizing him. He said that so Heidnik suffered from a lifelong issue of bedwetting. And when he was a child and he would wet the bed, he said his father, among doing other things, but his father would make him place the pee blankets in the window, thus his neighbors, right in the clear view of his neighbors, thus showing the neighbors that he wets the bed. After he made those allegations, Heidnik's father ended up denying any allegations against him. So when Heidnik was 17 years old, he ended up dropping out of school completely. And when he dropped out of school, he ended up joining the United States of America's military. It said that he was an excellent soldier, in quotations. He ended up becoming a medic, and he also ended up earning his GED. So now, in August of 1962, he was stationed in Germany, and he began to complain about, it was like 20 different symptoms, like ranging from like nausea, being nauseous, to vomiting, to headaches, to partial blindness at times, just different things of that nature. And he ended up being transferred to a medical hospital in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And that's how he came to Philly, even though, he was born in Ohio. He ended up being honorably discharged, and he was ended up being diagnosed with schizopersonality disorder. So now about Granham. So Granham was born September 9th, 1959. He's the oldest of 5 children. Since early childhood, like, I found information on him, but personal things about his life, I didn't really find much. But something that was repeated over and over again was, since he was a child, it had been documented that he was mentally all the way, not all the way there. It was no like diagnosis, but they did say that he was considered a little mentally disabled. So when he went to high school, which is Alani High School that he attended, which is so crazy because I personally know people who went to Alani High School, and it's just like, when it was open, it's just like, you never know who your classmates, who your neighbors, who your coworkers, really are. It's crazy. But so when he was in the 10th grade there, he ended up dropping out, failing out, really, because he had poor grades, and he also missed school often. After dropping out of school, he immediately entered the workforce, and he moved out of his parents' home and ended up moving to North Philadelphia in 1979. Now, in 1983, he ended up moving to another complex in Philly, and that's when it said that he began to indulge in drugs and alcohol. He also started to sell drugs, and it was said that he hung around pimps and prostitutes often, but there was never any like examples of him being violent towards anyone. It's actually said that his neighbors and friends called him a, quotation, nice man. Moving back on to Heidnik. After he was discharged, he ended up becoming a nurse, and he also enrolled in the University of Pennsylvania for 1 semester before dropping out. Now, something that I was kind of just like, wow about is, in 1971, Heidnik ended up incorporating a church, and it said by 1986 the church was flourishing. It said when he first opened up the church's bank account, he put in a little over $1,000, but then by 1986 it had it had gathered $500,000 now in the bank account, which is equivalent to $2.7 million in today's time, in 2023. So remember that, because it has to do with kind of his ending. Though I did try to look up, like, where's the church? Is it still active? Did it close after this? Like, was it active during when he was, killing people? Couldn't find anything. That's literally all I found about it. Through his church, though, he ended up meeting his wife, Betty Disto. Well, she was actually involved in church and in his religion, and they started doing like pen paling, writing messages back and forth to each other, because she was actually located in the Philippines. So after 2 years of writing letters back and forth to each other, he proposed to her, and she ended up saying yes, and then she moved to Philly with him. Now, she said this is where, when she moved and they got married, everything almost immediately started to break down. She said she caught him having sexual relations with 3 women at the same time. Like, she walked in on it and saw it. And she said after that, I guess that's just completely when the mask, fell off. She said he would assault her, sexually, physically. He would also force her to watch while he engaged in sexual activity with other women. And she ended up getting away from him, luckily, from the help of the Filipino community in Philadelphia. Now, once she got away, she was pregnant already, but once she got away, she ended up having their child. After that, Heidnik did have 2 more children with 2 other women. So his last child's mother, she was actually illiterate and considered mentally disabled. So literally as soon as she had the baby was taken away and placed in foster care. Now, I started to see around this time, this is when Heidnik began to gather a rap sheet. So he actually ended up, his last baby mom, he actually ended up kidnapping her sister, who was actually mentally disabled also in a mental institution. He kidnapped her, raped her, violated her, things of that nature. He got arrested for that. His rap sheet consisted of all the way down from rape to carrying an unsolicited pistol to spousal rape to aggressive assault. Like, it was just a bunch. And I'm like, why was he not in jail for a long time? You know, like, how did he keep getting out? You know, that's like, you know. Starting November 25th, 1985, Heidnik began to abduct women, and he only abducted Black women. Now, doing my research on this and looking up documentaries and things of that nature, I ended up finding out that he had told one of his victims that he only wanted to abduct Black women because he wanted to end racism. Basically, I guess his plan was to try to kidnap as many Black women as possible, and, you know, force them to have babies. And so eventually he would have so many kids that the majority of the ethnicity in America would be mixed. And that was his plan to end racism. Yeah, makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. But okay. Anyway, he kidnapped 6 women in total, and 4 of them survived. It's said that he assaulted and abused them in any possible way that you can think of. He would make them eat dog food, and he also would often electrocute them. Now, this is how he was an inspiration to the serial killer Buffalo Bill in the movie Silence of the Lambs. So Heidnik had built a huge hole in his basement, and he would place the women inside of the hole, filling water in and electrocuting him. Now, in the movie, when Buffalo Bill, you know, would kidnap women, he made a huge hole in his basement and will put the women in. So that's where that actually came from. Basically, the ending of Heidnik's Crazy Behind is he ended up being tricked by one of the women. She was able to gain his trust to the point where he would call her his girlfriend. She was like, I just didn't fight back anymore. I did whatever he wanted to do. She did what she had to do to survive. She even helped him kidnap a woman, which ultimately solidified the trust that he had with her. So basically her name is Riviera, and so Riviera had asked him like, hey, I miss my family. Can I go see my family? He told her that she can visit the family temporarily, but she had to come back. So he drove her to a gas station around the corner from her family's home, and she went to her boyfriend's home instead, and they called the police, and then virtually, basically, he ended up being arrested. And I say that because there were things that happened in between, which is sad. The victim said that, you know, when she called the police, they ended up kind of not believing her. And she basically had to beg them to come down. And she was like, look, I still got chains on me. Please come down, come down. After some time of convincing, she says, then that's when the police came down, which is crazy, you know. So back to Granham. So again, didn't really find a whole bunch of super detailed things about Granham, because I came to realize that Heidnik is a teeny bit more infamous than Granham. But again, I did find it was very heavily written down that it was believed that he had mental disabilities. So in the summer of 1987, Granham neighbors began to start complaining about a foul-smelling odor to the landlord. The landlord began to give warnings to Granham, like, you better clean up, whatever you're saying stinks, whatever, multiple occasions. But then Granham ended up, like, dismissing it, ignoring it. Eventually, on August 9th, the landlord was sick of it. He said, all right, you have to go. And so he tried to get him to go and evacuate the premises, but Granham refused to open the door or let anybody in, so he ended up barricading the front door. He ended up gabbling a couple of personal items, including a Cookie Monster doll, and he escaped through the fire escape. The landlord called the police to come open the door, and the police broke down the door, and when they broke down the door, they ended up seeing naked corpses everywhere, bones everywhere, blood, drugs, just a mess, a terrible mess. So then he went on the run for about a week. It was a whole bunch of sightings of him at fast food restaurants, car washes, etc., etc. But every time the police got there, Granham would be gone already. So his mom ended up tracking him down and was able to convince him to turn himself in. Now he turned himself in, and that's when he ultimately confessed to everything. So Granham had killed 7 women, strangling all of them. So after Granham had confessed, he ended up getting 6 death penalties and 1 life sentence. Now, it had been written that Granham would have to serve out his death sentence after he served out his life sentence. And I feel like they gave him a little bit more leniency because, you know, it was cited that he had mental disabilities. And they also cited that when he went on the run, one of the only items that he took to survive was a Cookie Monster doll. So right now, he's actually currently still alive to this day. As far as Heidnik, when it was his time to go to trial, he tried to claim that the women were already in the house, in the basement, when he acquired the house. Like, what? How does that even make sense? And I just want to say this too. Side note, sometimes, like, I'm not a real googly person. And it's because not that what he didn't do was funny, it was funny or it was good or it wasn't bad. It's just like so idiotic. Like a lot of narcs and stuff like that, they just think they're the smartest person in the room, but you really the slowest one. And it's just like, did you really think somebody was going to believe that you really went to court and you really said that? That's insane. But anyway, that's what he tried to claim. And then his lawyer actually argued that he was insane. Now, the downfall of that insane plea was his church. You know, it was proven, like, how did you acquire this huge church in the past and end up making virtually now millions of dollars from the church and being an investor for the church and all these things like that? If you're insane, no, you knew exactly what you were doing. You were of sound mind. So because of that, he ended up getting sentenced to death. Now, while he was waiting for death, he did try to kill himself a couple of times. All his attempts were, all his attempts failed, excuse me. But during July 6, 1999, he died of lethal injection. Now, like I said before, so he died of lethal injection, and Granham is actually still alive to this day in a Pennsylvania jail. So, Heidnik was active from November 26, 1982 to March 9th, 1987. Granham, who was still alive, was active mid-1986 to mid-1987. They both lived less than a mile away from each other, and they didn't know each other existed. So again, I was doing research about this. There was people who was trying to say, Granham, that was nature. It's been well documented since he was a child that he wasn't all the way there. He was born like that. And then with Heidnik, You know, there was people that was trying to say, well, maybe he became this way because of the abuse that he allegedly endured from his father. Tell me all what you guys think. I hope you guys liked it and enjoyed it. I hope it made you think a little bit. I hope I was able to stimulate your mind a little bit. And please like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys again next week. Bye.